We've all been in conversations where our mind goes blank. So in this video, you'll learn a step-by-step process that will help you make an unforgettable impression on people. Early stage conversations are just about finding common ground. Many people believe that you have to have a great opening line when the most obvious conversational starters are usually the best ones. In this clip from the Nikhil Kamath podcast, watch how Nikhil and his guest connect over finance.
And what were you doing up until you were 29?
I worked at a hedge fund for a while as a trader.
Wow. Hedge fund. What kind of hedge fund? What
It
did
was
you
a
trade?
REIT hedge.
Real estate. Illiquid asset classes?
No, mostly the publicly traded REITs. Actually, it was right when the meltdown happened. So
Were you short?
they were short. Yeah.
Now, people are going to ask you what do you do in every conversation, but most people answer this in the most boring way possible. They say, I'm a consultant, developer, or lawyer. This doesn't give the other person anything to connect with you over. Notice the difference between saying, I'm a developer, and saying, I wanted to work for the government, I accidentally became a writer, and now I'm working on my business. People will ask follow-up questions for only one of those. Moving on, early in a conversation when you don't know what to say, use clear thinking to create connection. This means you drop jargon and ask simple questions about what the other person is saying. For example, if you're not a tech person but you're talking to a software developer about AI, here's what those questions might look like.
AutoGPT
What is Markdown?
So Markdown is like HTML, right? ChatGPT can
what
spit
is
out HTML. If you had,
But what will AutoGPT have that chat doesn't, which...
it has access to a terminal.
What is a terminal?
But if you keep doing this, after a point, a conversation will start feeling like an interview and you won't get a chance to talk about yourself. That's why you have to bring in your experience to the conversation. In this clip, watch how he shares his perspective and then asks a question.
I have an aunt, okay, who lived in the US all her life. She's still there, actually. Each time she came back, she got us like, these toys and chocolates that people didn't have access to. Invariably, we had this perception that she is this superior being almost. But to feel that way when you're in Hyderabad, you go back to the US and your Indian origin friends are trying to be a coconut. It's a dichotomy, right? Here you're feeling superior, there you're feeling inferior. So do you like being here more because of that?
When you do this, you give the other person a chance to learn about you and you also get a chance to ask them a question. For example, if you're talking about your favorite video games, anime, or TV show, talk about your experience with it before you ask for theirs. At this point, you've crossed the first few minutes of conversation and now you have a chance to make a lasting impression. The way to do that is to drive conversation to shared principles and priorities. People connect over shared goals and visions, and by asking about those, you will make sure you connect over shared interests. In this question, the tone is very formal, but it's a great example of how to bring up somebody's priorities.
I was going through your social media bio. Amongst other things, it said first a husband, then a father, then a brother, then a son, and then New Zealand Prime Minister. Is that how you view life?
The way you can do this is by asking why questions.
I'm very interested in your transition from Unilever to Air New Zealand to being a politician today. And I want to ask you questions about that, how that transition felt like. Would you like to begin by describing it in your own words and tell me, A, was it worth it? And B, why the transition?
Now, you can't keep asking why like a 3-year-old. It can make people feel defensive because they might feel like you are judging them. So make sure to ask why only when you're genuinely curious. That way, your vocal tone and body language will automatically convey your good intention. When people share their priorities, you will be able to connect with them on a deeper level if you use the mirror method. This is where you summarize what the other person said in your own words. Watch how Nikhil does that here.
Okay, so let's summarize. Let's go part by part so we remember what you've said so far. You're saying so much. GPT, transformer.
Yeah.
Data is dumped into the transformer. It learns from the data which has been dumped to be able to predict
The next word.
based on probability.
This makes other people feel heard, it reduces misunderstanding and creates mutual trust.
Yeah, that's how I approached life, was just be curious about it and actually learn and focus on learning, and the rest takes care of itself.
So you're saying curiosity and learning that you learned in business serves you well, is good for politics?
The next time you're talking to someone, try to summarize what they said back to them and notice how they react. But when you're doing this, make sure you don't confuse interference with interruptions. Interruptions are not always bad. Sometimes you can actually cut into a conversation as long as you don't change the subject of a conversation and you just want to understand something. This becomes a problem when instead of listening to understand, you're actually just waiting for the other person to stop talking so you can start talking. Here's an example of what not to do.
First of all, every religion, Muslims, Jewish people, Christians, they all believe.
Well,
that
Georgie, that's the other
homosexuality
thing.
is-
Everyone,
No,
let him
but
speak.
that's the other thing.
Let him speak.
Every
Notice when Nikhil cuts in, he's doing it to understand and he doesn't change the subject of the conversation and he doesn't start talking about himself.
But you are seeing a shift from rules to power, as I said at Racina. You're seeing a shift from economics to security.
Do you think
and-
the world order is changing? The
Yeah, I
established
do.
order?
And I think also you're seeing a shift from sort of efficiency to resilience. And so, you know,
Can you explain that? Efficiency to resilience?
Here's everything we discussed in today's video in one sentence. Ask simple questions to gain context, then share your experience, drive conversation to shared priorities and goals, and reflect what other people said back to them. If you like this video, subscribe to this channel and check out this video on screen if you're interested in learning more about this topic.